what if the exact trait you've been praised for your entire career, your relentless iron willpower, is actually the #1 thing guaranteeing you will fail at your next major goal?
I mean, it sounds completely counterintuitive,
Yeah,
right?
totally backwards.
Because we are conditioned from childhood to view that the brute force determination as the ultimate virtue of any successful leader.
Right. Which is exactly why we are tearing that assumption down today. Welcome to the deep dive.
Glad to be here.
So we are exploring the show notes and the core takeaways from a recent broadcast on the Building Fortunes radio network.
Yeah, hosted by the highly respected trainer and mentor Greg Dwyer.
Exactly. And in this specific broadcast, he sits down for a really fascinating conversation with his guest, Bernie McGraw.
It's a great discussion.
It really is. And our mission for this deep dive is to extract the exact secrets that top performers use to turn pure intention into consistent action.
Because the concepts Dwyer and McGraw unpack, they fundamentally challenge the way ambitious people think about discipline, focus, and, execution.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because the cycle of setting a massive strategic goal and then watching it just quietly evaporate a few weeks later.
Oh, we've all been there.
Right. It is a universal experience, especially for high-level leaders and entrepreneurs. You, listening right now, you probably have a goal from January that's already in the graveyard.
What's fascinating here is that the source material immediately targets the false gods of goal setting.
The false gods. I love that phrasing.
Yeah, Dwyer and McGraw completely dismiss the two tools society tells us are just mandatory for success.
Which are motivation and willpower, right?
Exactly. We operate under this assumption that failing to execute a crucial Q3 pivot or dropping the ball on a new venture is somehow a moral failing.
Like you just didn't want it badly enough.
Right. You lack the fire. But this broadcast points out a really harsh biological reality.
Okay, lay it on me.
Motivation and willpower are fundamentally unreliable tools for long-term success.
Unreliable is a heavy word to use for the very things we literally build our entire professional identities around.
I know, but they make a very compelling case by looking at the mechanics of motivation. They point out that motivation fades much faster than we expect.
And there is a real physiological mechanism behind that, isn't there? I mean, it's not just a change of heart.
No, it is entirely neurochemical. Motivation is an emotion, and it's driven primarily by dopamine.
Right, the reward chemical.
Exactly. So when a founder has a vision for a massive new initiative, let's say they decide to completely overhaul their company's operational software.
A huge undertaking.
Massive.
Yeah.
The brain releases a huge spike of dopamine just from the idea of the finished product.
Wow. So you get the reward before you even do the work.
Yeah. Your brain rewards you for the fantasy of the streamlined business, but that dopamine spike is designed by evolution to be temporary.
It's a spark.
Right. It's a spark meant to initiate action, not fuel a 10-month implementation process.
Yeah.
You literally cannot sustain a dopamine spike indefinitely.
So relying on motivation is like trying to cross an ocean using the fuel from a bottle rocket.
That's a great way to put it.
I mean, the initial launch feels spectacular, but you're going to end up stranded in the water very quickly.
And that is precisely when people try to switch gears and rely on their secondary tool, which is willpower.
Right. When the motivation fades, the conventional advice is to just white-knuckle your way through the resistance. Drink some coffee and push through.
But Dwyer and McGraw explicitly refer to willpower as a myth.
A myth.
Yeah, they state point blank that it is not enough.
Wait, isn't willpower exactly what we're supposed to cultivate? I want to look at that because we hear metaphors all the time about willpower being like a smartphone battery.
Right, like it drains throughout the day.
Exactly. Like it might start at 100% in the morning, but by 8 p.m., after making hundreds of decisions, it's totally drained and you're reaching for the junk food.
Yeah, decision fatigue.
But for the executives and founders targeted by Greg Dwyer's show, I think that smartphone metaphor is a bit too gentle.
Too gentle? How so?
It's more like the O-rings on a space shuttle.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, the O-ring metaphor captures the stakes much better.
Think about it. An O-ring is just a simple mechanical seal. Under normal room temperature conditions, it holds up perfectly fine.
Right.
But put it under the freezing extreme pressure of a launch, and the material becomes brittle. It snaps.
Yeah.
And that causes a catastrophic failure.
That's incredibly accurate.
Willpower works the exact same way.
Right.
On a quiet Sunday morning, your willpower is perfectly intact. You feel like you can conquer the world.
Sure, because there's no pressure.
But think about a startup founder's typical Tuesday. By 2 p.m., They have made 300 micro-decisions. They've navigated a sudden cash flow crisis,
Uh-huh.
and they mediated a massive conflict between two department heads. That cognitive load is the freezing pressure.
Yeah.
The willpower O-ring doesn't just slowly drain. Under that kind of stress, it snaps completely.
And this highlights the fatal flaw in most strategic planning.
How do you mean?
Well, if your strategy for achieving a massive, complex goal relies on the assumption that your O-rings will hold up at the end of a grueling, high-pressure day.
Then you're already doomed.
Exactly. The strategy is broken before you even begin. Willpower implies fighting your own depleted biology every single step of the way.
And when those O-rings snap, when the cognitive defenses are totally down, nature abhors a vacuum.
Yeah.
Right.
Always. Something rushes in to fill that void.
And the source material provides a really clear causal pipeline for what happens next. Distraction leads to inaction.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, modern goal setting often completely ignores how distraction actually functions in the lives of high achievers.
Because we think of distraction as, like, playing video games.
Right. When we hear the word distraction, we imagine trivial things. We picture someone scrolling through social media or watching cat videos when they should be working.
Yeah.
But for leaders, distraction is far more insidious. Distraction usually masquerades as work.
Oh, man. Productive procrastination.
Exactly that. It is the active enemy of execution. Let's look at the psychology of it for a second.
Yeah, break that down.
When a leader's willpower O-rings have snapped by the afternoon, they still feel the psychological pressure to be productive.
Right. Because they're high achievers. They can't just sit there.
Exactly. But facing the massive, complex task like writing the prospectus for a new funding round, that requires way too much cognitive load.
It's too heavy.
So their brain hunts for a cheap, easy win.
They start answering low-priority emails.
Yes.
Or they dive into a minor customer service issue that they really should have delegated to someone else.
Or they spend an hour tweaking the font on an internal memo.
I'm definitely guilty of that one.
We all are, because crossing anything off a list, no matter how trivial, provides a microdose of dopamine.
Oh, so we're back to the dopamine.
Always. It satisfies our completion bias. The brain craves that false sense of forward momentum. You chose the easy task over the important task because the complex task required willpower you simply no longer possess.
That is so true. I want you, the listener, to really analyze this dynamic in your own professional life right now.
Yeah, take a hard look.
Think about a major strategic goal you abandoned earlier this year. Be brutally honest with yourself about how it happened. It almost certainly wasn't a dramatic explosion.
No, rarely ever.
You didn't call a sudden all-hands meeting to announce you're giving up on your grand vision.
Right. It was a quiet fade into inaction.
Exactly.
It is death by 1,000 minor fires.
One day, you got distracted by a sudden, urgent, but unimportant operational issue, and you told yourself you'd get back to the big goal tomorrow.
But tomorrow brings its own fires.
Right. The next day, you cleared out your inbox instead of doing the deep work. A week goes by, then a month, and the goal simply slips off your radar entirely.
Distraction didn't just interrupt your work, it actively replaced your execution.
Okay, so having dismantled the traditional advice of just try harder, Dwyer and McGraw pivot to the only viable alternative.
Yeah, they don't just leave us with a problem.
Right. If motivation is a biological spark that inevitably burns out, and willpower is a fragile seal that snaps under pressure.
And distraction is constantly offering us the path of least resistance.
Right. What actually drives results?
The word they emphasize over and over is structure.
Structure.
Yeah. The source material focuses on building simple structures that make success inevitable.
Okay, I want to pause on the sheer audacity of the word inevitable.
It's a strong word.
It is.
Yeah.
They aren't saying structure makes success more likely or maybe a little bit easier. They are claiming it makes it inevitable.
It is an incredibly bold claim, I agree. But it's rooted in behavioral economics and environmental design.
How so?
Well, the notes from the broadcast heavily emphasize the role of alignment in both life and leadership.
Alignment.
Right. Alignment means your environment is physically and psychologically organized so that your default actions naturally produce your desired outcome.
Okay.
Structure is the mechanism that forces that alignment.
Here's where it gets really interesting. When we talk about structure making success inevitable, we need a better mental model than just, writing a to-do list.
Oh, to-do list is not structure. Not in this sense.
Right. We are talking about architectural forcing functions.
Yeah.
Think about a manufacturing assembly line.
A classic forcing function.
Right. A worker on a Ford assembly line does not need to wake up feeling highly motivated to build a car.
They don't need a pep talk.
Exactly. They don't need iron willpower to go search the massive warehouse for the next steering wheel.
No.
The physical structure of the conveyor belt delivers the exact part they need at the exact moment they need it, right to their hands.
The environment dictates the behavior.
Yes, it's like bowling with the bumper rails up. You don't need the perfect, highly motivated, incredibly disciplined throw every single time.
Right.
The structure, the bumpers, keeps the ball out of the gutter and moving toward the pins, even on your worst days.
That is the essence of what Dwyer and McGraw are advocating for ambitious professionals. It's about friction mapping.
Friction mapping, I like that.
You design an environment where doing the right thing requires absolutely zero motivation, and doing the wrong thing, the distracting thing, requires an immense amount of effort.
So you make the bad habits hard and the good habits easy.
Exactly. You engineer your environment to manipulate your own completion bias.
I have to throw a massive wrench in this logic, though.
Okay, go for it.
There is a glaring paradox here. If I'm a founder, and we've already established that my willpower O-rings are snapped by 2 p.m.,
Right.
and my motivation is just a fleeting illusion,
Yep.
how on earth do I muster the discipline to build these complex assembly lines in the first place? Doesn't creating the structure itself require the very willpower we just said I don't have?
That is a great question, and that is the critical distinction between doing the work and building the system.
Okay, explain that.
You don't build the structure when you are depleted. You build the structure during that brief initial window when you actually do have that massive dopamine spike of motivation.
Oh, you use the spark to build the engine, not to push the car?
Exactly. That is a perfect way to phrase it. When you have that January 1st energy or that post-retreat clarity.
When you feel unstoppable.
Right. You don't use it to just dive into the daily work. You use that temporary motivation to alter your environment permanently.
Wow.
You install the forcing functions so that next Tuesday, when the motivation is completely gone, the structure carries you.
Let's ground this in reality for the C-suite or the startup founder listening right now. What does an architectural forcing function actually look like in a leadership context?
Well, it looks like intentionally removing your own agency in moments of weakness.
Give me an example.
So, for a leader prone to productive procrastination, a forcing function might be configuring the company's IT infrastructure so that their own access to the general customer service inbox is completely blocked.
Wait, really? Just brought themselves out?
Yes. They literally cannot micromanage those tickets, which forces them to focus on high-level strategy instead.
That is brilliant. Or it's pre-committing capital.
Exactly.
Like if your goal is to launch a new marketing initiative, you don't wait until you feel ready to hire the agency.
No, because ready never comes.
Right. You sign a binding contract with a massive non-refundable deposit on day one when you are highly motivated.
Yeah, you create stakes.
You've just introduced a massive financial penalty for failing to execute. You don't have to feel motivated to work on the campaign anymore.
You just have to want to avoid losing $50,000.
Exactly. The structure forces the action.
Another common structure is outsourcing the enforcement of your calendar.
How does that work?
A CEO might instruct their executive assistant to physically interrupt any meeting that runs 5 minutes over, no exceptions.
Just walk right in.
Walk right in and cut it off. The CEO no longer has to use their own draining willpower to cut someone off or politely end a conversation.
The system handles the friction for them.
Yes. This is the alignment Dwyer and McGraw are talking about. Your environment perfectly supports your intended outcome without requiring your continuous emotional buy-in.
So what does this all mean for how we define a disciplined professional? Because we have this deeply ingrained, really romanticized view of discipline as suffering.
Oh, absolutely. The hustle culture mindset.
Right. We picture the disciplined leader as the one taking 4 a.m. ice baths, gritting their teeth, and outworking everyone purely through mental toughness.
The insights shared by Dwyer and McGraw completely shatter that illusion.
Completely.
The promise of their conversation is that it will challenge how you think about discipline, focus, and execution. And the core revelation is this. True top performers do not possess some magical, bottomless well of focus that the rest of us lack.
They aren't superhuman.
Not at all. They experience the exact same dopamine crashes and decision fatigue as everyone else.
They just rely on their structures instead of their emotions. They've built better assembly lines.
They are playing an entirely different game. They aren't trying to out-willpower a chaotic environment. They are the architects of their environment.
Yeah.
They recognize that human beings are fundamentally lazy and easily distracted, so they build systems that assume laziness and account for distraction. They make execution automatic.
Tracing the logic all the way through this broadcast, we are looking at a fundamental shift from relying on pure intention to guaranteeing consistent action.
Intention versus action.
Right. Intention is writing down the strategic vision on a whiteboard when you are feeling inspired.
Which is easy.
Action is the forcing function that physically prevents you from doing anything else 3 months later.
Which should be incredibly liberating for you, listening to this deep dive right now.
Liberating.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Whether you are scaling a startup, leading a massive corporate division, or just trying to write a book, your failure to hit that goal you set months ago is not a lack of character.
It's not a moral failing.
No, it does not mean you are fundamentally lazy or incapable of greatness. It means you are trying to operate in an environment that was hostile to your goal.
You were trying to hold an entire launch sequence together with a frozen O-ring,
What?
and you were surprised when it snapped.
Exactly.
It takes the heavy emotional guilt completely out of the equation. It turns failure into a practical, solvable engineering problem.
We have to stop idolizing the myth of willpower. It is a fragile seal, not an infinite power source.
Right. We must recognize how productive procrastination silently causes inaction, letting distraction hijack our goals under the guise of busy work.
And the ultimate takeaway from Greg Dwyer and Bernie McGraw is that the true secret of top performers is their obsession with environmental architecture.
Yeah.
They prioritize building simple structures, they force alignment, they make success inevitable by removing the need for daily motivation.
It honestly changes everything about how you approach Monday morning.
It really does, because if the right structure truly makes success inevitable, then failing a goal isn't a personal flaw, it's just a design flaw.
A design flaw. Wow.
So look at the major strategic goal you have been struggling with the most. What is one forcing function, one piece of unyielding structure like putting up the bumpers that you can install in your business or your life today so that tomorrow you can succeed on pure autopilot even with zero motivation?
That is the perfect architectural challenge to leave you with. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We love unpacking these hidden mechanics of human behavior and exploring the invisible forces that shape our professional lives. So take a hard look at your environment, stop relying on your willpower, and start building your assembly line. Keep building,